What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Celtics Digest with your host, Bruce Velez, and special guest, YouTuber Nick NBA. We're here to break down the Celtics, give a first half breakdown of the team so far, and just chat and talk everything Celtics with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, want to bring up any topics on the team, drop them down in the comment section. But Nick, what's up? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel.
What's
How you
up,
been?
brother? How
How
you
you
doing,
been,
man?
my guy?
I'm great, man. We got a great team to cover. You know what I'm saying? So it's all good, man. All good.
Exactly. I'm excited to break down this Celtics team and go over it because as we've seen so far, Nick, through this season, they have been atop of the Eastern Conference. And even though they've lost to some, middle of the pack teams, even losing to the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of those top teams in the Eastern Conference last season, the Celtics have been purely dominant for this whole entire season. And obviously coming off of that championship campaign from last year, many Celtics fans were expecting this type of situation to kind of unfold. But we've seen Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown even take leaps in their games, but not only just them. Players like Peyton Pritchard in that sixth man of the year conversation. We saw Luke Cornett get 6 blocks last night versus the Miami Heat squad, absolutely demolishing Bam Adebayo. And even players like Namus Keita have stepped up when the Celtics have needed them big as well to really help this team have a solid record. But there's also players on this team that have kind of gone on forgotten and kind of have fallen through the cracks. Players like Xavier Tillman, players
Um,
like Jaden Springer, who didn't really get that much playing time yesterday as well. So we're going to be breaking down and talking about all of these players. Nick, is there any player you kind of want to get into conversations first and kind of break down from this team? Since you're the guest, I'll let you kind of pick a player we can kind of dissect and break them down.
I didn't want to do this, bro. I swear to you, I did want to start on a bad note, bro. But you said his name, like Xavier Tillman. Listen, president or vice president, I don't care of the Tillman fan club. I don't see it now. Now, I'm not saying I can't see it. I'm not saying there's not a chance that I won't be able to see it this season. But at the minimum, Tillman was supposed to be able to be this. He was one of the best switching bigs in the league, like bar none. It was that like if you need a switching, you know what I'm saying? He was our guy. This season, it's just like he's getting blown by every time he's in the game. On the offense, they're not using him correctly. He's supposed to be a five, right? But they have him in the corner. He can't shoot. And he has to shoot because he's open, and it just groans every time in the stand. And it's like it's crazy. Now, this is probably the only negative topic I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying, because the team is so great. They've won 8 out of their last 10. You know what I'm saying, losses to Atlanta and Cleveland, right? This team is great, right? Everybody knows that. But the the Tillman shit just hurts my heart, man. It really hurts my heart because in the preseason, he shot what like 42% from three. And of course it's preseason. But for a guy like Tillman, who's been in, you know what I'm saying, for he like it's supposed to be something that he can translate, right? He's not a young cat. He's not somebody that hasn't played yet. You know what I'm saying? So I got excited. It was not, of course, was not saying he was supposed to shoot that from three this season, but it was supposed to be a plus to the elite side, which is his defense. And that crossover that Tyler Hero gave him, bro, I lost pieces of my mind, bro. I lost pieces of my heart. But um, get the negatives out the way right there. You talked about Springer. Um, I'm not super huge on Springer, but I do think that in the games where there's garbage time, I feel like he's a guy that is supposed to be playing. You know what I'm saying? Defensive monster on the ball. Quick hands, quick twitch. He's athletic as hell. The offensive side, of course, has to improve. But in the summer league, I think he only played 2 games. And the first game, like he was running the show, he was hitting threes and stuff like that. So there are things to like about Springer, right? And a lot of it is on the defensive side, which can help the Celtics. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that is my take on that stuff. If you have any thoughts on Xavier and Jane Springer? which I
Yeah,
know you do. But
I like that we're kind of ripping the band-aid off, kind of talking about, the disappointing parts right out the gate to kind of get it off the chest. And I kind of feel bad because, like, obviously the Celtics team is very talented. So players like Xavier Tillman and Jaden Springer, I feel like could have more of an opportunity to kind of maybe try their showcase their skills or kind of like be able to do that, have that opportunity. But on the Celtics team where it is already so stacked and it's fighting for limited roles, it's kind of tough. Like we saw with Springer yesterday, we were talking about this before we went on stream. It's just tough to not see him get really any action, even in a game where the Celtics are so shorthanded. Seeing no Drew Holiday playing, I thought he was going to get a big time role being that defender. And you even saw in those limited minutes that he did play, he was an impactful defender on that Celtics court. Went right up to those Heat guys and was playing some tight defense from the get. And you see that every time when Springer checks in. He obviously has that, stay ready mentality like a lot of these Celtics players do. But since he's on that flexible contract and the Celtics have already maybe looked to trade him when they were pursuing Lonnie Walker, I think that it's a potential that he could be out on the door, but I don't want to see that because I want to see Springer succeed with the Celtics because I think he could have that role with this team, but I don't know if necessarily he's going to get the time. And then with Tillman, I'm in that Tillman fan club exactly with you. I mean, I was very, very excited to see him. I really liked him at Michigan State, and I really liked him at Memphis. And I thought coming over to the Celtics, he played with bigs like Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson, not really traditional shooting big. So coming over, playing with Horford, playing with Porzingis, I thought that 3-point ball would kind of come more generally and come more gradual for him. And we've seen glimpses of it, in the playoffs with him hitting that three in the finals. We saw it in the preseason, like you mentioned earlier, but we just haven't really seen it as of late. And it could be just because maybe Nimi and Luke have surpassed him in that rotation. It's not because he's getting enough time to get those shots. But like you said, he's traditionally a five, a little bit of a kind of plays his style of play is very similar to Horford, but like or Al Horford at this age. You know what I mean? Like playing the five, not when Horford was on the Hawks or anything like that. And I think having Horford being that mentor is fantastic. But Tillman, like you said, even getting lost on defense the last couple of times he's been out there, it's just been a little bit of a difficult adjustment for him. And I think if the Celtics, I don't want to say this, but like if they are potentially looking to move pieces, him and Springer, even though they were the newly acquired pieces, could be the ones that possibly could be thrown around because I think everyone else has kind of found a role so far with this team.
yeah, man, and that hurts to hear. Out of all the pieces that
That's what I'm
they
saying.
can trade, guys that you think it would be those two guys.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And
man,
it's
it's
tough
sad.
because I like them both too. You know what I mean? I love the Jaden Springer. I know he had the draft comparison of Marcus Smart, but he really does have that like hustle, hard work, gonna die for the loose ball, like play it to the like, and he has that Celtic like blood, like you know what I mean. That Celtic culture is just doing everything to put your blood and sweat on the court to make sure you win the game. And some franchises don't have that integrity ingrained into their culture of their city, but Boston really does with some of these players. And Springer and Tillman do show that, but they just haven't been able to really unleash it on this team.
Yeah, man. And it is what it is. Celtics are a great team. They can't play every night, but it's just like with Tillman, like of course he's not gonna play every night, but last year when he played, he showed his stuff, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was like, hey, he can guard damn near anybody. Like I seen him like man, I did a video of him last year. He was guarding KD, Devin Booker, like I'm talking about the best of the best in the NBA, and he's like right there with these guys. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we signed him on a 2-year minimum. I'm like, oh shit, this is insane. Now, still a lot of season left. I heard he has some stuff with his knees in the offseason. Big part of, him sliding, you know what I'm saying, sliding his feet and stuff like that. So I hope he's getting healthier if that is the problem in the case. But yeah, it is tough to see though.
Yeah, obviously, if there's some like little minor injuries or stuff that he's dealing with, we've seen with Sam Hauser dealing with some back stuff as well. That's why he's been taking
Yeah.
some time. Obviously, those things can go into that. But we obviously both are in the Tillman FC waving our flags, hoping that he can bring some blossoming for the Celtics. But let's look at some comments, Nick. We got some people in here saying what's up. We got Cool Genuine Phil saying what's up to everyone.
What's up?
Michael
What's
Howell
up?
saying that you met his shoes are
Yeah.
at the door
Yeah,
with
yeah.
your yeah, I know.
That's enough.
My boy Josh is in here as well, saying he's shocked Peterson was getting a lot of minutes. We can get into some Peterson talk as well after this. Colby asking if I'll be live for a game soon. We might not be doing live watch longs anymore, but we might be getting to them for the playoffs. sometimes you got to be brutally honest. As we much Tillman, hopefully Tillman just in a slump. That's what I'm saying. We
Yep.
wish them the best for our boy Tillman. But Josh brought up a great player to kind of transition to and kind of talk about, a player that's been recently getting some playing time for the Celtics in Drew Peterson. And I recently made a video today talking about how the Celtics found a hidden gem in Peterson. As even last season, I was when I mentioned and kind of talked about him, I was on the two-way when he got signed. You could see the similar kind of glimpses of a Sam Hauser kind of prototype player. Maybe he could kind of be that little bit of replacement. Obviously, has to get better on the defensive side. Is a little bit smaller, not as big of a size of a player at that small forward position, but has some of those tendencies of being a solid shooter for the Celtics off the bench. And he's been able to showcase that with the Celtics in these recent two games, getting more than 25 minutes on both of them. And I saw a stat from Noah Dalzell where he got played like 5 minutes previous, I think, combined before these two games, which is just absolutely insane that Joe was just thrusting him into the lineup like that. But Joe trusting Drew Peterson. He's seeing some stuff. Obviously, it's a two-way guy. He comes up and he comes down, so he sees more than us, and he's confident in Peterson. And Peterson was not only shooting that he could make shots, but also was playing pretty solid on the defensive side, holding his own, guarding some of those Miami Heat guys, not letting them get in behind. Keeping them in front of him for a majority of the time. And he was also a very, very solid rebounder as well. I believe he had 7 rebounds last night versus the Cavs. I think he had 4 to my knowledge. So he is coming out to be a nice little player. And in my recent video, I talked about how he could be the next two-way player, maybe to get converted, similar to how Nimi was last season if the Celtics hold that last roster spot. So, what are your thoughts about Peterson? And then, kind of getting into that second question, do you think he could possibly get that last roster spot?
Yeah, I did a lot of things on Peterson during the summer league. I was there when they played the Lakers up there and stuff like that. I think I like Drew Peterson. I like his all around game. I think he's an all around player. I think where the Celtics can't do, they can't turn him into Hauser. He's not like just a shooter. He's not the shooter that Sam Hauser is. He is a very good passer, and he needs to have the ball. And it's now you have Tatum, you have Brown. I'm not saying give him the ball over those guys, but in garbage time, have him run pick and rolls, see what he can. You know what I'm saying? So, I do like Peterson. People was like, "Hey, the Cavs game, right? Why did he in and not Jordan? You know what I'm saying? Not Jordan Walsh." I would have tried Walsh, but in that game to that point, the Celtics offense was they were bad, right? It was they needed some, and he's a better shooter. You know what I'm saying? So him, he played all right, man. He played all right. He had, yeah, I think he had 8 points, 4 rebounds, hit 2 threes, I believe, and his no, he is energetic though. But he had a couple like it's not all the way there, of course, because I think Noah said he played 30 NBA minutes towards that point, and it was just like in these last 2 games he's played that already. Right, so Joe sees something in Drew Peterson. He is what 6'7", 6'8". He is as tall as Hauser, but of course he has to. I think he has more energy like than Hauser. Like he's a little bit more athletic, but of course he's gonna foul. You know what I'm saying? Because he just hasn't played. Right, he's an older guy. He even spent 4 or 5 years in college. He went to Rice for a couple of years and then he transferred to USC. But like you have to play in the NBA. That's it, right? So I like his energy, being able to rebound was impressive. He should be able to shoot, right? And I want to see him be in positions where he can pass it and not just stand there in the corner. For the 15th man, I believe he can. Um, I think it just depends on who's there. You know what I'm saying? Around the league, if they decide to, trade people, anything. No, excuse me. And just yeah, I don't know. I think he can, but if he's not better than the person that they're trying to put there, then I guess it would be tough for him.
Exactly. There might be a NBA veteran on a buyout that the Celtics could get, or like someone available in like a trade that got bought out or something that they might go out and pursue just to help beef out the roster. But like I said, with like seeing it with Nemi towards the end of the season, it could possibly always happen with Drew. And if not, I could see him, getting a chance or an opportunity with another team if Joe is going to consistently give him minutes sporadically here and there if the Celtics are depleted and do need his shooting off the bench. I do like that you mentioned as well that he is a creative passer because you are 100% right on that. He has that little bit of like spark in that. And I do see that energy. I saw it when he was, dribbling that Miami bench when he hit that three yesterday as
Yeah.
well. But you know what I mean? But I could see exactly what you're talking about with that. We got some more comments as well coming in. Phil obviously saying he's confident X can turn around, give him time. So we got some more believers in X as well. Phil also saying that Drew took a charge on D Mitch the other night, which
Mhm.
he did. He playing some tough defense. Gonna lay his body out on the line for Joe. He knows that he needs to do that stuff to keep his ready for his minutes and stuff. And Colby talking about Baylor, saying he's looked horrible in his minutes
Whoa,
with
baby,
Boston.
whoa,
Yeah, I don't. Baylor.
baby.
I feel like the hate on Baylor just isn't really warranted. It's obviously tough for a player to adjust to, like you said, coming into the NBA and kind of getting acclimated to that. Even though he's a 5-year player in college, I believe Baylor was.
Yeah,
It's still tough, obviously, to kind of translate to that. And we've seen Baylor have great success in the G League, and I kind of see a maybe not similar trajectory where he's gonna guaranteed get that spot
yeah.
in a rotation next year, but he's already got a spot on this roster next year, and I could see him kind of having that Jordan Walsh treatment, where obviously he plays in the G League for a majority of this season, maybe gets some times thrown in here and there, and then next season gets to compete for end of the rotation roster spot or getting thrown in it sporadically to kind of be a energy shooter off the bench.
Yeah, because I've already seen improvements, right? In in the preseason, he was objectively bad. Like he just
Mm-hmm.
it the game looked too fast. He couldn't shoot. He was airballing. You know what I'm saying? Then he went to the G League, was crushing it. You know what I'm saying? And the game last night, he looked like the game slowed down already for him. His shots just look more fluid. Him in the pick and rolls. He is also a great passer, right?
Yeah.
Like coming out, it was a shooting, it was a rebounding, and it was the passing. Like he offensively can do everything, but again, you have to play in the NBA. That stuff is uh going to be scaled. You know what I'm saying? Scaled a lot down if you're a guy especially on a team that's this great. But yeah, Shaman, like he just has to learn, bro. He just has to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and if his shot starts to fall, which I know that it can, he could be better. But yeah, I wouldn't say like in the preseason he was horrible, right? But the last game I felt he did some cool things. Had a nice pass to Jalen in the corner. The game, like, it's starting to slow down a little bit. He's not hitting the shots yet, but he just looked way more fluid in that last game.
And I think we saw that with Jordan Walsh, similar to coming into this season. I think last year it looked, and even in this preseason as well, or the summer league, excuse me, for Jordan Walsh, it looked like it wasn't like he wasn't like comfortable on the court, but we've seen him feel like that as well this season with the regular roster, and he's made some great improvements. Kind of even yesterday having some great flashes on defense playing against that Miami Heat team, and I think Baylor is going to kind of have that as well, where it's just going to take just some time for him to just catch up to NBA speed because, like we said, he's only been acclimated to this for a little over a month at this point. So it's
Yeah.
definitely some growing steps, and especially when you're not playing every single night from going from college playing and being one of the top players on Creighton, it's a little bit of a difficult adjustment. We also have
Yeah.
another comment from Phil talking about Baylor talking about the nice pass to JB in the
There
corner
you
three.
go.
Like what you said, he will be good to keep up in Maine for a while. Reminds me of Chris Mullen. Yeah, I think just to have him in Maine for this season and then kind of translating him to next year, kind of him fighting for a rotation spot. I do one thing want to say is that Baylor, Pritchard, Peterson, and Hauser, all of our shooters, they all have one thing in common besides shooting. They love to rebound, and they can go and do it. And that's one thing that I love to see is that they all have a knack for crashing the boards and being aggressive on that to kind of continue to play. Even players like obviously Tatum and Brown do that as well, but just to see that come from the shooters running off the corner or running from the 3 point to get that second chance opportunity for the Celtics is always key.
Yeah,
Talking
man.
about Talk about from another comment from Kobe. Nimi
Uh-oh.
has grown a ton, especially his touch around the rim. We saw Nimi. I was it yesterday's contest where he was 70% from the 60% from the field, I believe as well. A couple
Mm,
games he's been. One of the other nights he had I believe he had 10 or 12 points. I don't remember
yeah.
what game it was. Maybe it was Chicago or it was Cleveland. But I know that Nemus Keita has been having some improvements, and he's been a player that has been kind of discussed around this team here and there as well because a lot of people last season were frustrated with Luke Cornett. They wanted to see Neemias Queta come in. Obviously, the Nemi fan club were in that club as well. They were all preaching to see Nemi get a chance. And then obviously after that, then now we've seen Nemi get some chances, and some people turn their backs on him. And I remember that one game versus the Wizards, everyone was getting very frustrated with Neemias Queta, and it was calm down, slow your roll. He needs to get used to the game, and Joe is playing him in these moments for him to get experience, to so that when we do need him in serious playoff moments, he isn't getting lost or having you know moving screen fouls in a crucial moment or something like that. And I think Neemias has even showed us since that Washington game his poise and his control has gotten a lot better around the rim. He had that incredible block yesterday as well, where he sent that
Mm.
ball out of nowhere. Um, I really like Neemias Queta. What is your kind of thoughts on him so far this season, and kind of the 50-50 of them thrown around, because I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
Man, y'all ass crazy, man. Because yeah, the stretch and he was doing amazing. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he clear offensive rebounding god doing all this," and then he have a stretch where he's not that good, and it's like, "Oh, he's not an NBA player." Listen, we can't go from that. That's not you don't listen. It's supposed to be look, he's good. Is he's having a tough stretch. It's not supposed to be from hey, he's a good player to he can't play in the league. We can't do that. Okay, again, Kata is one of the best offensive rebounders in this league. I don't care how you slice it, right? He's an energy guy, right? And he's still now he's not like 22 or 21, but in terms of playing in the NBA, he is, right? He
Mhm.
didn't play a lot with Sacramento, and then he came here, played some games last season, played a lot this season, right? These are guys that have not played a lot in the NBA yet. So he's still learning whether you like it or not, right? He's not a finished product yet. And what Kobe said, right? This was an area of improvement I was hoping for, right? So last season in paints and he took some shots in the paint that's not at the rim. He was 10 for 28, 36 percent last season. This season on shots in the paint, not at the rim, 10 for 19, 52%. So he's already improving there, which he said, right? And he just has to learn the if he had the if I could just combine him and Cornette, right?
It's a
The
good
under
one.
the positioning of Cornette, the understanding of him, and his athleticism with Cada, right? The shot blocking, the athleticism, right? The length, right? If I could combine them two players, you got that's a good center right there. But again, I think Joe trusts Luke more as he should, right? He's the better player, right? But in some situations where you just need a guy that's more athletic, some more imposing presence, right? You go with Kata, right? And that's just how it is. I did not like how people was, saying, "Hey man, he can be a useful player," and then saying he's not supposed to be in the league. No, it's he's having a tough stretch. Take him out the game. That's all it's supposed to be.
That's exactly how I feel. I thought that the disrespect was just crazy to absolutely hear. And like you said, I think obviously Luke is like the one that has the better understanding of the fundamentals of the game. He can be that fundamental big where he can basically do everything that you basically ask him for. He has that positioning. He has that understanding of what he needs to do and what to make the play kind of go through, and that's because he has that NBA experience compared to Neemias Queta. Like you mentioned, he's not young, he's not a rookie, but he's a rookie basically to the league, kind of coming in. So having him kind of going through these growing pains is going to be necessary to get for him to his full potential. And I think his full potential in this league is an NBA backup big, possibly even starter if he continues to see these improvements. The touching around the rim has gone better. He has had some days where he does have some foul trouble. Yesterday he did have 4 fouls, but he still looked good in that game where he had 4 fouls. He was one of the Celtics' main defensive rebounders. He was getting shot blocks. He was making his shots around the rim, and that's where you want to see those improvements kind of come in. And if it all can kind of click in just a couple games altogether, maybe Nemi can even win us some games off the bench, which would be huge.
And the Clippers game when when KP came back, that Clippers game that was perfect, bro. That was perfect. It was like it's like I don't. I don't know if pressure like gets, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if, he felt a lot of pressure, you know what I'm saying? Because without KP, it's Al Horford and then it's him or Cornette, right? And
Yep.
for a lot of that time, it was him, right? And he had again some great games. The first game against the Wizards that I was at a game against the Pacers when you know what I'm saying? And it's just he's not there yet. He's not a complete player. But I don't know if when KP came, he was like, all right, man, we got KP back. I can just chill. And he went out and had a phenomenal game. Like there's gonna be ups and downs. He's not a complete player yet. So yeah, I feel it.
No, exactly, and I love how you said that perfectly. It's because he warranted those starts as well. It's not like Joe just gave him those starts because he felt bad for Nemi. Nemi
Right.
played good enough to where he deserved to get that. And obviously, they want to have Pritchard off the bench so he could be that engine. They could start Pritchard and keep Nemi Skate off the bench, but Joe trusted in Nemi. He believed in Nemi. He even said that after the game where he extended to play him, even though he wasn't having the greatest performance. And that's what you want to hear from your coaches, believing in these players. And I truly believe that Namus will have a chance to be able to be that guy in Boston. And Josh agrees as well, saying Nemi is a great player. But we got another question as well from Kobe talking about Springer again. And I kind of went over this in a recent video, so we can go over it a little bit quickly. But Kobe's asking if we trade Springer, who should we trade him for? Now, obviously, the Celtics making a trade would be a little bit difficult. They only can do one for ones, and since they're in their second apron, they can only accept players that make less than Springer. I know Springer makes $4,018,000, and there's only select players that kind of fall under that list. Some of them off the top of my head that I know were in the video were players like Torrey Craig, Amir Coffey, Dwight Powell, J-Ron Sharp. Are any of those players enticing to you? I know a lot of people have kind of talked about the possibility of a Torrey Craig or Amir Coffey having that extra wing off the bench. I've had people in my Discord talk about that, but I feel a player like Jordan Walsh can kind of be that player. And if the Celtics feel that they already have that player in Jordan Walsh, there's no necessarily need to go and get an extra one of those just in case for the
Yeah.
playoffs. If they're going to trust Jordan, maybe an extra big in Dayron Sharp. He's a pretty good shot blocker and rim defender, but ultimately then the big man group gets clogged and where then Tillman's spot I feel like is then definitely shut away. So
Yeah.
possibly even Kata's. So what's your kind of take on that, or would you rather keep Springer even if there's a possibility of losing him?
I don't mind trading Springer, but of course it has to, depend on the player. I haven't done a lot of trade stuff this season, to be completely honest with you, because the Celtics just don't, they don't really need trades.
That's what
I
I'm
feel,
saying. It's tough to find stuff to kind of get for them.
yeah. But last year, some of my targets were Toy Craig, a guy like DeLon Wright last year, but of course he's on a contender now. Um, and then a guy like Sharp. I don't know if like Sharp's a great. I think Sharp brings a lot of the stuff Kata brings, but he's just smaller. Like
Yep.
they're like probably the exact same player, but he's just smaller. A guy like Trendon Walford, I was harping on that for a long time. He's been actually playing now. So Coffee would be a steal. I don't think the Clippers trade Coffee for Springer. We might have to add some draft conversation. And then at that point, I don't know if it'll be worth it. I'm not talking like a first, but like I don't know how the Celtics view. But Coffee would be an amazing ad. Yeah, so a guy like Torrey Craig, I'm gonna have to look at some trade stuff. The Celtics are past that point, but the garbage time lineups aren't as good as they were last year. So maybe the Celtics, with guys like Svi, that was here. We got O'Shea, who was here last year. Tillman was a lot better last season. So yeah, the garbage time guys aren't as good as they were last year. And I could start looking at some like smaller, contracts, some smaller guys that we could probably trade for. But yeah, no, Torrey Craig would be a great ad. A guy, a 3 and D guy that's not gonna take a lot of shots, but he's gonna put his he's gonna put a lot on the defensive side. Yeah, I can look at some guys, but yeah, I wouldn't mind Torrey Craig at all.
No, yeah, that's the tough thing about the Celtics. Like you said, it's just there's not really many people you can really look to trade or even want to trade. Like, I mean, it's only
Mm.
like, I guess, trading guys at the end of the bench that other teams might value a little bit more, where you could maybe get a player to also be a backup role player or something like that. But ultimately, I don't think that a player it's necessary that the Celtics need to make a trade at the deadline. I think if the Celtics were to pass the deadline with the same exact team that they have right now on paper going into the second half of the season, they would be totally fine and okay, and I think they would have no issues and have to worry about it.
A question. So,
Mhm.
say if they do are trying to trade something,
Yep.
what position do you think they need? Is it a big, or is it a wing, or is it somebody smaller?
So I don't think it would be a guard at all. I think we're kind of set in that position. Drew
Yep.
has been solid on the defensive side. Derek has obviously been great on both sides, and Pritchard has been electric on the offensive side. I think that a player like, I think in the big category, the only way I would go and get another big is if I was trading one of our bigs. So
Right.
if we were moving off of a player like Kada or moving off a player like Tillman for, I guess, a upgrade that they view as an upgrade, then I would,
Yeah.
then yeah. But I think adding another big into this rotation with Horford, with Kristaps, with the three that we already have would just clog it up having six guys. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it would be the wing position. But and that's where we get the question because I think the one role that we had last season that we necessarily don't really have this year is that kind of O'Shea Brissett role, which even was a limited type of role, but a small ball five, a guy who can play in the dunker spot, a guy who is an energetic rebounder, and you have a kind of combination of Kada with that high energy rebounding and that shot blocking, and
Right.
also with Jordan with that type of defense, and Jordan has a better 3 point shot than O'Shea. It's
Right.
ultimately going to come down to I think like we were kind of talking about, like, do you feel confident in Jordan to take that leap in the playoffs, and can you give him 5 to 10 minutes and feel confident with him playing that? If you do, there's no need to make a trade. But if you don't, then going out and getting a guy like Coffee or Craig, like you said, Coffee I think would be a steal. The Clippers, if they want to maybe sell, but they are playing good even with Kawhi out. I still think they want to compete. I don't think they'd want to get a younger player like Springer. I think they'll
Yeah.
want to keep Coffee, but a player like Craig, if the Bulls decide to have a fire sale, if they're gonna unload on Vucevic, Zach Levine, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams, whoever they're gonna be selling, I think a player like Torrey Craig for $2 million on a rental would be an absolute perfect piece to kind of bring in, like you said, have a nice 3 and D wing. He's not gonna demand shots, but he can kind of come in there and play in a instance where maybe Sam comes in and plays and starts 0 for 3. Maybe you throw in a Torrey Craig and see what he can
Right.
do. And or depending on a matchup, if you need a little bit of a better defensive player at that wing position, you could throw Torrey Craig in there if you're trusting him a little bit more.
So I just was looking at teams and stuff. I landed on the Pelicans with Javante Green, who is a guy, two former Celtics actually,
Okay.
Javante Green and Daniel Tice. Tice has always been the guy that is reliable as hell. The Pelicans have seen a not a resurgence, but their rookie from Baylor, Missy has been playing great as of late. The Pelicans are in a weird situation where basically their whole team is hurt. DeJounte just came back. I just seen a report that Zion isn't even close to returning, so I don't know what the hell that's about. Herb Jones has been out for like a long time now, so I don't know what's going on with the Pelicans. But Javante Green has been playing really good. Probably just a product of just him getting a lot of time because people are hurt. But Javante literally fits into that O'Shea type of role, and I think he's a better player than O'Shea is. Then Tice, um, again, Tice is just a very reliable guy. He can shoot, he can pass, he can screen. The Celtics would probably like to have Tice back if they had to make a trade for a big. Because you would still. I'm not sure who you would trade in that deal because again, like you said, that would bring in another big. I don't know what big you trade for Tice. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. There's not a lot of guys. There's not a lot of guys.
That's what I'm saying. There's not that much, but I do like both of those kind of acquisitions. Like you said, kind of bringing Tice back home. You obviously know the fans love Daniel Tice. Everybody in Boston does. He's a fan favorite. Even when he was playing starting center, and I was screaming, "Tice can't start at the center. He's
Yeah.
so much better as a backup. Please, can we get a starting center?" But no. But I would love to bring back Daniel Tice. The one thing, like you said, it'd be tough. I think in that case, maybe it'd be Tillman, maybe to help out with like having a little bit of a switchable big in New Orleans. I think they could use that with Zion obviously being out for a little while, maybe having that, and then Javante Green, yeah, I know he got a deal last year with the Bulls, I believe it was kind of halfway through the season. I don't know if he was on a two-way, but then it got guaranteed. And he was a fan favorite also in Boston. And I
Yeah.
think he could be a guy like you said, plays that O'Shea Brissett role. He's like a scrappy defender that's gonna, be that guy that's gonna do all the dirty work for the Celtics on that second unit and basically get no credit for it on the stat sheet, but all the fans that watch the games are going to recognize it and be hyped that they got Javante Green on their team doing all that type of stuff. So I personally love to bring him in. And like you said, I think maybe for Green, you could get rid of Springer. Maybe the Pelicans, like you mentioned, they have had some injuries. I think they're kind of the team like the Grizzlies last season. I know the Grizzlies have also had some injuries, but the Pelicans have just been so beaten up that they kind of are the Grizzlies of last year, where I think maybe if they can't get healthy fast enough, their playoff chances might be dwindled because of those injuries. So maybe towards that second half, if they're looking to move off of Brandon Ingram or move off CJ McCollum, maybe they take a flyer on Jaden Springer to play because they have guys like Brandon Boston, I know, who are playing for them, and
Yeah.
Elfrid Payton, who just recently got waived. So Springer could be
Uh,
a guy who could maybe, if they were to have some more injuries or kind of go into a little bit of a younger route here for just this season, could make a splash on there and make a name for himself.
I agree, brother. I agree. I agree.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we got some people talking. Tice is nice from Josh. He loves Tice. We got NJ Flip talking about Torrey Craig. We got some Warriors talking here. What do you think about the Warriors? Frauds? No. Warriors are frauds. Warriors are one piece away from contention.
Uh, no, I do like the Warriors. I like,
Yeah.
the scheme, the system, Curry, Draymond Green. I wouldn't say they're frauds, but I don't know if they're like, I guess it just depends on who you talk to. Because if somebody says that, hey, they're a title contender, then I guess to me that would be them being frauds. I don't think they're title contenders. I think they started off very, very good at the beginning of the season, and they were like 11-2
Yep.
or something. Yeah, we lost to them, you know what I'm saying? So it was a
Hmm.
tough game, but I don't view them as real contenders, so I won't say that I don't think that they're frauds of any sort, but I do think they're a good playoff team.
Yeah, I think they're around that good playoff team. I don't think they're gonna be competing with the Celtics come June as well. We got a question about PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker would be hard to trade for because he makes $11 million, and since he's mostly known for wanting to get bought out as well, I don't know if he kind of fits into where the Celtics could grab him with the restrictions with the second apron. A player that I do want to talk about that we have yet to kind of bring up on the channel so far in this stream is Peyton Pritchard, as he's obviously in the thumbnail here been a really, really standout player for the Celtics so far this season, kind of taken that leap. And we've all seen Peyton Pritchard since back in the days where he was unfortunately sidestepping out of bounds, trying to get used to acclimating to the game of basketball. And where many people thought he was just going to be a catch and shoot player for the Celtics. But he's really evolved his game from not being just a catch and shoot guy, but a guy who could create his own shot to working in the pick and roll to then being able to score at the rim with ease, like we've seen in his ascension from the second half of the season into this year. And it's really transformed his game. At the beginning of the year, he was averaging 4 threes per game. Last couple of games, he's made 5, 6, 7, has had two fantastical performances in the fourth quarter where he's just been absolutely electric, just going off. And he's the front runner for sixth man of the year. I know you did a video on Peyton Pritchard as well, kind of breaking it down. What are your thoughts on, his ascension this year? Like, how you feeling about it? And obviously your sixth man of the year thoughts as well.
I love Peyton Pritchard, man. He's come a long way. And well, we drafted him 27th overall, and that was the year that Kimba started off the season hurt. So he
Mm-hmm.
was getting some playing time, and at that point, it was just hey, like of course the most redeeming quality was him as a shooter, which probably still is that, but he's just gotten so much better as an overall player. At the start of his career, it was like hey, his handle isn't that great. He's not a great passer yet. He needs to learn how to, take the team, you know what I'm saying? And then we started seeing him in the summer league, right? He started like playing out of his out of out of out of his head, and he started like really, really improving. And he was a guy that I know everybody has heard this, but he was trying to get traded. And it was not like, oh, I hate this team, I hate the Celtics. It was that, hey, I work hard as hell. I know I can play and I'm not playing here. That's cool, but I want to go play somewhere. Instead, Brad was like, you know what, listen, let me hand let me hand you this contract, and next year I'm gonna have you playing a lot, right? And shout out to Brad for seeing like getting in front of these contracts, right? Like, Sam Hauser, right? Even before he was like in our 10 man, you know what I'm saying? He gave him a contract. And it's like I know that at some point he's gonna be a guy that's in our, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna pay him, and then in a few years it's gonna look like a steal. He did the same thing with Payne Pritchard. He did the same thing with Rob, because before Rob was like, you know, a huge, I think it was a year that he was hurt too. And they signed him, and because they ultimately was like, hey, this guy is a real player. So if we sign him now at a time where his, you know, he's not all the way, excuse me, at the top, right? It's gonna look like a steal. Now, Rob, I don't even, I would be here all day talking about Rob, so I'm not even gonna get into that. But yeah, Pritchard, like the all around game, the inside game, he still shoots, I think about 77% of his shots are threes. But Joe said, like, as a three-level scorer, this guy can do it all. He's super efficient from three, of course, in the mid-range, and in the paint, he's able to use his craft. And he's not a huge guy at all. He's like what, 6'1",
Yeah.
if, but he knows how to use his size, knows how to use his shoulders against taller guys and just get those guys out of the way when he's driving. And then defensively, right? A guy that people don't really think is a good defender. Payne Pritchard is a phenomenal on-ball defender, right? He is a guy that's going to stay with you. And as he's become a better player, this is a guy that still picks up 94 feet in the Chicago game. He's picking guys up 94 feet. All right. He's going to get scored on because he's small, but majority of those times it's him being right there playing great defense, but the guy's just taller, right? He can really stay with the ball. He's still that same scrappy guy, but his all around game is just improved. And six man a year is not a race at the moment. If he continues to play like this, he'll win that easily.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement as Celtics fans here that it is basically locked up at this point. That if Peyton Pritchard keeps playing like this, that he is going to be having that trophy in his house. And he has been, like you said, just gradually getting better every single year, which I love to see, just in all aspects of his game, and has really transformed for the Celtics on this bench. And I love that Brad, like you said, got in front of this, locked him up long term. Obviously, had to move off some other guards, trading away Brogdon, trading away Smart. Did bring in Drew Holiday, but it did allow, obviously, Peyton Pritchard to kind of unlock himself off the bench and free himself to be able to play this good. And Peyton Pritchard's been doing this, as we all know, in pro-ams, doing it in Summer Olympics, all with the teams and stuff like that, under 21 teams and stuff like that. We've known he's been able to do this. So finally, getting that opportunity, he is living up to the moment. And it is absolutely fantastic for Celtics fans because he's on, I believe, a $6 million contract this season, which is just absolutely insane for the type of production that a player like Peyton Pritchard is putting up this year.
Yeah, I want to look, but that's damn near the best contract in the NBA, like real shit.
That's what I've been saying on this channel every time. It is the best contract, and he's a player that we obviously have talked about as well that can start in the NBA. We've been saying this since last season, but he's a player that I think on some of these teams could be a starting point guard. Maybe not averaging 27 and 8 like Scal was saying, but
Yeah.
I think that he could be a player that could be a top point guard, and making, like we said, $6 million, putting up these numbers is just absolutely crazy. Looking at any other bench players, Nick, is there someone that we didn't talk about from this bench unit that you would like to kind of talk about as well?
Yeah, we can talk about Hauser has is having a slow start to the season as far as his 3-point shooting percentage, but I feel like Hauser's energy has been great this season. Him on the defensive side of the ball has improved slightly from last season. And yeah, he's dealt with some of the back stuff. So I'm not sure how that's impacting his shot or just him overall as a person. But yeah, I really enjoy Sam Hauser. Hopefully he can get 100% healthy. And he was a guy that was really streaky last season, especially in the playoffs. There was times where there was like a series where he was not hitting shots. Then he was hitting shots. Then in the conference finals, he wasn't hitting shots, but then in the finals, he came out, was hitting shots, playing good defense, rebounding. Yeah, so um, I'm really solid on Sam Hauser. I think he is going to improve this season, of course. Um, just always trying to be a premium 3-point shooter in this league.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that take with Sam Hauser. Even last season, I was using crafted NBA, obviously, to find those defensive stats and being like, Sam Hauser is very good at defense here, guys. You need to look at this. And people in my comments were obviously talking about that. I remember that he wasn't, but he really showed that in the playoffs and in the finals. And we even saw at the beginning of last year, he had that stretch at this first like couple months where he was like the best 3-point shooter in the NBA, had the best shooting
Mhm.
percentages, was playing out of his mind. Then went on obviously a little cold streak, was a little bit streaky. This season has been dealing with obviously those back injuries, but I agree 100% has but gotten way better defensively over the last year and a half from what we saw, and I'm really really liking for what he can become with this team. And even Luke Cornett, I know we talked about him a little bit as well, but he's been playing really solid for this Celtics team, being a solid big man. Like last night had 6 blocks, absolutely insane. Something I think that was he tied his career high, I believe, was the that record. But that was just absolutely insane from Luke Cornett doing that type of stuff for this Celtics team and really stepping up when they needed it most with having no Kristaps Porzingis and no Al Horford.
Yeah, man, Luke. I like Luke, man. I like him a lot. I like Luke a lot because he does a lot of things that Joe likes. All right, so he's a guy. He's a phenomenal passer. Every center that plays for the Celtics in some capacity can pass. Right. It's from KP, Cornette, and now Horford. Then the guys who can pass like slightly, like a Cato or Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
But at some capacity, all of them has shown that they can pass. Right. We have to be able to move the ball, right? And Cornette just understands the spacing. He understands what Joe and the team needs from him. He's an offensive rebounder guy. Again, is going to set great screens. Screen is very important in this offense for a guy that can't. I won't say he can't shoot. A guy that's not shooting, that won't shoot. He's a guy he's a really good screener on those off ball screens. And the excuse me, yeah, yeah, so he's just a really good player. Offensive rebounding, passing, and then the defense that he played last night against Bam was just amazing. The 6 blocks, the hands he was showing, being able to play in between the handler and the pick and roll guy on the pick and roll is just a super valuable skill for a big man. And yeah, I really like Luke Cornett.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's been absolutely fantastic from what we've seen from the Celtics bigs. We talked about at the beginning of the season. We were both shocked that they were able to keep all three of Tillman, Cornette,
Mm.
and Kada. And each, even though Tillman hasn't showed the greatest flashes so far, they all have shown some sort of flashes so far wearing Celtics green, and that's something to be enticed about. But we can get into some of the starters here and kind of break down some of those guys as well. We haven't really touched about those. We have many guys to talk about here. We can get into. We have Drew Holiday, one of the better premier perimeter defenders, who has been playing solid for the Celtics so far. Obviously, takes a little bit of a sacrificial role on the offensive side, but defensively, still one of those great motors. Derek White, one of those clutch guys as well for this Celtics team, absolutely firing from three in those last couple games in the fourth quarter for the Celtics, and best guard shot blocker in the league. And then obviously, KP just recently came back. We could talk about JB and JT having great performances. Who you want to tap into real quick?
Yeah, their starting five as a whole is just amazing. There's not like a lot to say about these guys 'cause they're just so great. I feel like the guy that has been a topic for a little bit of the time is Drew Holiday. I've seen some people talk about like his contract because he's had some games where he's not scoring. I just don't think Drew is that type of player anymore. I know with the Bucks he was, a guy that could score. I think he had a 50-point game against like the Pacers like a couple years back. But Drew, I do feel like Drew is gets misplaced at sometimes when there are guys that are hurt and he has to like score more than 10 points, you know what I'm saying? But like the things that Drew gives you with like his screening and his of being able to guard centers in every position on the basketball court. I don't think you can replace that. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Tatum can, of course, Brown probably can, but like if you're looking for guys outside of this team, there's not many guys that can do what Drew does and be cool with doing the things that Drew, you know what I'm saying? Guys have NBA NBA players, man, they have egos, they have goals. Excuse me. And like Drew is a guy who's won 2 championships, and he is like, look, whatever the team needs me to do, I will do. He does it with a smile. You know what I'm saying? So like screening, passing, rebounding, guarding guys, whoever Joe Mazzulla tells him to guard. I would like him to be, more efficient on the offensive side. I believe last year he was the best corner shooter of all time. Like he needs to get back. Not saying he needs to do that again, but if he can just up the percentages all around, that would be great. I would like to see Drew, be better on the offensive side of the ball when guys aren't there. But the fact that people are just like, oh, this contract is gonna be scary. Oh, he some shit. Like, no, stop doing that.
Yeah, I don't think the contract's going to be scary at all. We saw Drew Holiday obviously playing with or no, he did not play with Team USA, but Drew, no, no,
No,
right?
he
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. We saw him. I was blanking real quick, but we saw him play with Team USA for. I was thinking Derek White because I was thinking like in the whole JV mess. I was so confused. But yeah, we
Yeah.
saw Drew Holiday play for Team USA this season for a reason. He's one of the premier on-ball defenders in the league and one of the better perimeter defenders in the league, and he's going to stand to that. And NBA players and those Team USA guys recognize that even at his older age. And Brad Stevens, even though he needed to kind of get him on that contract security so he didn't lose Drew Holiday or something like that, and that's why people think the contract is scary. It's not going to be scary at all because these contracts are obviously going to rise. And when the Celtics potentially, if they do look to move off a player in Drew Holiday, I don't think it's going to be this season. I don't think it's going to be next season. I think it'll be in 2 seasons. And if that's the case, I don't know, I think he's making $30 million contract will be a reasonable contract to be able for the Celtics to get off of and another team will take a player like Drew Holiday because they've already seen, like you mentioned, his sacrificial role that he's already played with this Celtics team. And once as he gets older, he's not going to be required to obviously have to go off for those 10 to 15 to 20 points sometimes when the Celtics need him to when they do have those injuries. And he can be that all-out defender and possibly be like on the Celtics team. I would say most nights he's probably that fourth or fifth best player on the court. And I think if a year or two he could still be that fourth or fifth best player on the court for a team, still starting for that team, but just playing all out defense. And maybe some nights we'll have a night where he goes off for 4 or 5 threes, but it's not his requirement to do.
And yeah, also 2 things, his contract goes down. So
Okay.
it's not like his contract is ascending. And two, we've seen worse contracts get moved.
Yes.
So by your timeline, right? They try to trade him in about 2 years. He's making 32 and then he'll make 30. We've seen worse contracts get traded, right? And Drew still could be a guy that can help a team. Now I don't even know what situation could it be us trade him to a team that's trying to contend. Maybe not, because we'll probably still be in contention. But if it's a team that we would like to like share contract, I mean, it's like share a cap with, we add like a pick or some shit, and then we trade him. That's 2 years of Drew Holiday on 30 that maybe they can also trade, right? Like this shit that just happened, how we got Drew Holiday. Like we've seen worse contracts be moved. So I wouldn't say it's scary. You know what I'm saying? Drew could digress as a player. He could, not be the same guy as he was last season, but he's not. The team won't be hurt that much if Drew is not the same player. Now, if Drew just gets phenomenally worse, then that's something else. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see him getting phenomenally worse, specifically on the defensive side, and that's what the Celtics need him for. Obviously, with the stock exchange with Derek White, that's his main. Obviously, his offense is a great value as well, but his main value for this team is to be one of the better premier defenders on this team. Hit open shots when he is required to, and open when other teams are doubling, and he's in the corner open for three. And obviously, we like to see that shot percentage get up a little bit higher. It doesn't have to be the best 3-point percentage in the NBA, but as long as it gets a little bit better and gets a little bit more efficient. I still think he could be a quality player on this team, and no need to already kind of cook up those trades or even possibly thinking about that because
Uh,
I think he is a required player to be here locked up for the foreseeable future because he again is resemblance of what a Celtic is.
Yeah, and then in the playoffs, you need a guy like that in the playoffs. Like no matter
Mm-hmm.
what Drew Holiday does throughout the season, even if he has duds in the playoffs, Drew Holiday is one of the best defensive playmakers in the league. We've seen that when he was with the Bucks, right? He Oh, he shot bad here, shot bad here. But when the game is on the line, Drew Holiday's going to make a play. We saw it last season against the Pacers in game 3. He can shoot bad all game, but Drew Holiday is gonna make the most important play on the defensive side of the ball. With a team like the Celtics that don't need Drew to score 20, we don't need Drew to shoot 10 for 10, right? He can have a bad shooting game, but the Celtics are always gonna be in games. So what does that mean? We need at the end of the games Drew to become Drew, and he's done that so many times in past years and even last season. In the finals, he was phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? He had to play. It was either game 1 or game 2 where um Derek White and him were pressuring Luca in the backcourt. They stole the ball and he hit a three and it ended. Like that was when they shut down, right? So you need Drew for the playoffs. Those clutch time defensive plays they're not replaceable.
Exactly, and like you just said, those plays that he made in Indiana in those late game situations are irreplaceable with some of these players in the NBA. No matter how great they are as a defender, even if they're a little bit younger or something like that, they might not be able to. They're not may not be able to make those instinctive plays that Drew Holiday is making because he has that veteran experience from being in the league and having those defensive tactics already in his arsenal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Exactly. But anybody else from the starting lineup you want to break down? We could talk some Kristaps Porzingis as well. I know he just came back. He's obviously rested the last game, not going to be playing in back to backs. But in that Clippers game, from what we saw with Kristaps Porzingis, was nice. And we already knew the Celtics team was top tier in this Eastern Conference. They were the only team to beat the Cavs. They were the first team to beat the Cavs to beat their undefeated record in that NBA playoff or NBA Cup game without KP. Now with KP, obviously they lost that Cavs game, but the second one, but KP has been nice. How do you think it's going to affect the Celtics this season? Obviously.
Positively. That's what I think. I think they're gonna be really good, man. KB just adds another element to this team that is just puts them over the top, right? With Payne Pritchard playing the way that he is, you get KP back, a guy that pick and roll, pick and pop. You can throw an alley oop to him on a roll. You can play the mismatch. You know what I'm saying? He is the most like the mismatch nightmare with Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the post with smaller guys. You can do that with Kristaps Porzingis, right? And he doesn't see defense. I think Tatum sometimes sees the like he can be a little, you know what I'm saying, with some guys that are like slinkier, they're taller, they can defend them. I think Brown a little bit less, but of course he takes some incredibly tough shots. I think Porzingis, if he gets a switch, he's not seeing the guy that's checking him. Like he's either gonna hit the shot, not hit it, or get fouled. Like he's not affected. You know what I'm saying? So that and then that pick and pop game, he shoots very deep threes. A guy that is not, you know what I'm saying, if he plays a guy that likes to protect the rim, you're gonna have a tough day because you're gonna give up two of those threes. Then your coach is saying, hey, you gotta check that. And as soon as you jump, he pump fakes and he drives. Right. And then that just opens up so much for our team. So Chris Porzingis is just such a good piece to have on his team.
I think it's just like you said, like just like a beneficial additive. You know what I mean? Because the Celtics team would be good, obviously, would have some issues with its front court, maybe a little bit if Kristaps wasn't there throughout the full fluidity of the whole season. Maybe teams, some bigger matchups would be able to obviously expose it. But just having him is obviously an added luxury. And I love how you mentioned the pick and pop because I don't know if you follow Frank Gorman on Twitter, but I saw his tweet where he tweeted out that the first pick and pop three from KP is going to be absolutely amazing. And then obviously the first couple of plays they just went for the pick and pop three to
Yeah.
get KP into the action right away, and it was just awesome just to have the Garden go crazy for that. And like we mentioned, it just an added luxury. Great to see Kristaps kind of back here, obviously healthy. He's obviously said there's been no restrictions, no anything like that. Obviously that last game was just because he was on a back to back, but we should see him making a high level impact with this team. Obviously the other players as well have just said like he just fits like a glove. It's not like he like when he comes out and he comes back in, it's not like it's like hard to fit the puzzle piece. He just fits so easily, and that's just an additive benefactor for the Celtics as well.
Yeah, and the thing that the Celtics were lacking the most was that protection at the rim. You know what I'm saying? Al Horford is still a great defender, but he's not a guy who's going to block a lot of shots now, unless he's playing the Cavaliers where he just goes crazy. But KP is a deterrent. KP is a shot blocker, right? People notice KP's there, and that size and that length and that athleticism is really a thing of beauty.
Exactly, exactly. And then also the other starters as well, we can tap into them. Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown. Obviously, Jalen Brown had an all-star summer this year, going absolutely crazy and been playing really solid as well. And then Derek White, Jason Tatum, Derek being one of those clutchest players, Jason Tatum in those MVP conversations. Obviously, we know that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they're having great seasons as well. But Tatum definitely deserves to be in those conversations for his contributions that he's been doing because his shooting has obviously got better. Even though there's been some games where he hasn't been the most consistent on the shooting, in those nights he does take over as the playmaker, as the rebounder, setting up those other stars.
Yeah, as far as Tatum goes, the 3-point shot, he's about at like 37% this season. The field goal percentage is where I'm like, hey, if he gets that up, he's cool. I think he's only shooting 45%. For a guy that's that size, for a guy that's that good, I feel like he should be up like 40, like where Jalen is. I think Jalen's like 48,
Mm-hmm.
49%. I feel like if Tatum can get there, then the MVP talks become real because they're like if you talk about like complete players in this league, Tatum has to be one of the best, if not the best, like the most complete player as far as scoring, passing, rebounding, defense, intangibles, all that shit. Like Tatum is probably the most complete player in the game of basketball. So if he becomes more efficient and keeps those things, I think he can really be like a real MVP candidate because the Serbian in Denver, that stuff is just crazy. Even Giannis, I don't know why people aren't really talking about him. Like Giannis has been playing amazing. He leads the league in scoring. And he's shooting a lot. He's shooting a lot more and a lot better. This season, Shea is also a guy that people like to throw in those conversations. He is an MVP caliber guy. So yeah, I feel like Tatum. If he gets, it's always been the efficiency and the consistency, right? If Tatum can get to 50% from the field, like a Shea, I'm not sure what Shea shoots this season, but Shea was a guy that shot efficiently, and he only shot about three threes last season, and if Tatum could get to that efficiency point, like all this is just like if he can, it'll be nice. Like this is not things that he needs to do, which is crazy. Like he is great as he is, right? He's a top 10 player lock as he is, right? It's just that hey, if we want Tatum to be in that top three conversations, these are the things that he has to do. But he has won a championship being who he is, and he has improved from last season. So Tatum is just great, man. Again, if he wants to be, I know he would love to be the best player in the world, right? And us, if he became the best player in the world, we would love that shit. You know what I'm saying? So just like efficiency is the only thing that's I think holding him back from those. Even the last night game, he shot bad, but he had 11 rebounds and a couple of assists. Like he still does a lot of things. So yeah.
No, I would agree. I think that obviously it'd be great to have Tatum being the best player in the world for all of us, but you know what I mean? It's just seeing those little inconsistencies with the shooting percentage, just seeing it go up a little bit would get him in those categories. But like you said, I don't think he even needs to be in those categories for Celtics fans to be
Yeah.
happy because we've already seen a transcendence in his game and how he's really stepped up for the Celtics. And that's all we want to see is this Celtics team staying and standing pat. You know, I mean, they won an NBA championship. We knew Tatum and Brown were going to get better. We knew some of these other players were going to get better. It was all kind of, I guess, the real question marks were really on some of these role players and if Horford was going to get a little bit older, if Kristaps would come back from the injury, okay, how would Drew be? And we've kind of seen some of those questions answered already, and it's been working great for the Celtics so far in what we've seen as they're already atop of those standings. And holding out pretty solid. Is there anything you'd like to go over, break down before we sign off, Nick?
Nah, man, I'm all good. Just want
No.
to give some love to the other people. Derek White, Jalen Brown. These guys are amazing. Derek White, man, hey, it's tough to describe Derek White, man. It really is, man. But yeah, it's him, Jalen Brown. After he had a very interesting offseason. You know what I'm saying? Not being on team, on the Olympic team, a team that he should have. What I'm saying, he should have been on. But
Oh, easily.
um, just still finding places to improve in his game, those pockets of his game to improve. And Derek White just bailing us out so many times. The 3-point shooting, the defense, the shot blocking, the passing, everything that they do is much appreciated.
Yeah, Derek White, just to touch on it a little bit as well. has just been absolutely fantastic. We saw the last couple games, like I mentioned, hitting those threes, going into those pockets, those invisible pockets, trying to find that loose change, and just going crazy. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's been absolutely electric, absolutely clutch. One of those guys who can get those buckets and really keep the Celtics alive in those games. And Jaylen Brown, once again, really stepping up from the season he had last year, obviously winning Eastern Conference Finals and Finals MVP, but still pulling out an amazing season so far on both ends of the floor. Been very, very consistent, like you mentioned, in his field goal percentage. Maybe not the greatest start to the 3-point percentage, but as we saw versus that Timberwolves team, he can hit those threes, and you cannot disrespect him from that deep range, regardless of how the percentage looks, because he is a guy that will unleash from there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I agree.
Exactly. But everyone, thank you so much for coming out to the stream. We had a lot of people in here. Randomer was here as well. What's up? How you doing? Thank you for coming in as well. He hadn't been here in a while. Cool, genuine Phil was in here. I know NJ Flip was here. Jeff. We had some of your people as well. Josh. I know Kobe. Who Michael? Michael was the guy that was from your my shoes at the
Yeah.
door. Shout out to
Yeah.
Michael.
What's up,
Want to
Mike?
give
Appreciate you.
want to give shout outs to everybody that came through the stream and hung out. And I want to give a shout out to Nick as well for hopping on over here. We've had Nick over here a couple of times, and it's always awesome to have him on here. When we got these weekly streams started back up, I wanted to have him as the first guest on here because he's one of my boys, and I love talking Celtics basketball with him. We'll have Nick definitely back on the show in the future. But if you want to check out Nick's work, go follow him on Twitter at King Nick in our Twitter, and you can find him on YouTube as well at NIkNBA. Anywhere else you would like some shout outs as well, Nick?
Nah, man, I'm good, man. That's perfect, bro.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Of course. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into the stream today. We really do appreciate everyone that did come out. We will have these weekly streams coming through. We don't know if it's going to be specifically on this day or if we're going to be picking other days depending on the guest, but we will try to get you a consistent schedule with weekly streams over here on the channel. Like I said, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you once again for Nick for coming out. And we'll catch you guys in the next video, in the next stream, where you see us on Celtics Digest. Have a great rest of your night, guys, and peace out.